We've been talking about how to make good habits, how to start, to leverage the power of habit so you can begin to transform your story. But today, we're talking at Terraform about how to break the bad habits that are holding you back. Stick around. Hey, good morning. Welcome to Terraform Church. I'm Justin. I'm our lead pastor. It's my privilege to welcome you to Terraform Online this morning. I want to encourage you right away, like, share, follow, subscribe, all those things so we can stay connected with you in terms of social media land. And we're a church that both meets in person and online, and we're thrilled, however you're finding us, that you did. We want to invite you to be an active part of our community. Don't just be a passive viewer, but be somebody who, finds the courage to let yourself be known and to get to know us a little bit. You can take next steps with us in the Terraform app. You can fill out this connection card right here by following this QR code, and you'll find all kinds of information there, how to get connected, how to find out more about our church, how to give, look under the hood about what makes us tick, how to scatter and serve, all those wonderful things that we do here at Terraform Church. We're thrilled that you're a part of this. We have a great service planned for you. Got some music coming your way, an inspiring message by our operations pastor, Jeremiah Holthus, and I hope you stay for all of it.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't hurt, I don't deserve. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no word, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't hurt, I don't deserve. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't tear down, lie you won't kick down, coming after me. no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Hey church, as we receive our offering today, I want to thank you for your giving. I also want to draw your attention to our annual report. If you don't have the Terraform app, I think you can find this on our website somewhere, or there's a link, I think, even on your screen will take you right to it. And we're excited about what's happening around Terraform Church. There's a story that we're writing together that's worth celebrating, and that's what we do with our annual report each year. We kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse at our scorecard. What are the numbers that we're tracking? What is the impact that we're having collectively? And all of this is possible because of the way you give. So when you generously support your church, we are driving forward to accomplish our mission. We take dead seriously every single dollar that's donated so we can leverage this for the sake of God's kingdom to build heaven on earth together. So please check that out a little bit, celebrate with us, listen to those stories, see what we're measuring together and the impact that you and your generosity are having through your church. Thank you for the way you give. May God bless you as you do it.
Good morning, Terraform Online. I'm Jeremiah, the operations pastor here at Terraform Church. We have been in a series called The Power of Habits. This series shares the same title as a book by Charles Duhigg. My experience with that book starts actually with Steve. We heard from him 2 weeks ago, and he was so excited about this book. I had to check it out. His enthusiasm hooked me. So if you doubt the power of habit, I want you to think about the last time you were driving and you intended to go somewhere, but ended up somewhere else. Like you were planning on going to the grocery store and made the turn to go to Starbucks. That's when our brain starts to go on autopilot. Or even worse, or maybe not worse or dramatic, is have you been maybe commuting home or going someplace where you've gone a million times before, and all of a sudden you realize you are actually 2 turns away from the last street you actually remember driving on? Like that's the power of habit. That's the power that our brains can kind of switch to autopilot, and it's unnerving, right? So Justin introduced this series by talking about the power of habit and how it guides our lives. That successful people do habitually what others do occasionally. And then in week 2, we covered that those things that we did with intention eventually become automatic. That it was the discipline in the small things that leads to big changes. Steve talked about in week 3 that cycle of cue, routine, and reward, and how we can use that to create habits to bring life to the full, right? That abundant life that he was talking about. He broke out some algebra with the YW is greater than the MW, right? We got those prompts throughout the week. And last week, Justin covered a keystone habit within the context of family. How the goal, or the gap between goal and system, defines the outcome. So what is left to week 5? Stop. That's what's left. Stop it. Bad habits. That's what I get to talk about this week. Have you ever thought, I drink too much, I eat too much, I sleep too much, I need to stop smoking, I look at porn, I need to stop. Whatever it is that I need to stop, or how do I stop, that's what I get to talk about today. Fun, right? I could pretend to say that I don't know how I was privileged for this topic, but that's not quite true, because you see, my birthday was last month, and my family gave me an interesting birthday gift. It's a no button. You press it, and it gives you a random no.
No!
I don't believe that this was given to me because I don't know how to say no, or I need to say no more often. I was actually explicitly told that I say it so much that it would just be easier to have a button around for it. So I think that's why I get to be the stop it guy. So what do we do when we find ourselves in a negative cycle of cue, routine, and reward? How do we break the autopilot that pulls us into the wrong direction? Just try harder? Like we've all experienced that, right? And eventually it ends with, if I just had more willpower, I could do it. So preparing for this message and the series, a particular passage kind of popped into my head, and it may sound a bit weird at first, but just follow me with this. It's Matthew chapter 12, verse 43. When an evil spirit leaves a person, it goes into the desert seeking rest, but finding none. Follow me. it then says, I will return to the person I came from. So it returns and finds its former home empty, swept, and in order. And then the spirit finds 7 other spirits, more evil than itself, and they enter the person and live there. And so the person is worse off than before. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're like, I didn't think this was that type of church. But stay with me. There's a few things that we need to address and unpack in this to get to where I'm going. We need to talk about the cultural context, the culture that Jesus was speaking into, and the people that were listening. The culture at that time had a connection to the supernatural or the spiritual that kind of hinged on superstitious. That anything that happened in the physical reality had a connection to the supernatural or a connotation to it. We see this when Jesus and his disciples pass along the road a blind man. And the disciples get into a debate about the supernatural reason behind his blindness. Was it his sin or was it his parents' sin that caused him to be blind? All the while they're ignoring the man in need. So Jesus tells them they missed the point and he addresses the need. So we're talking about that sphere, and we're listening in on a conversation between those people. I also think that this isn't prescriptive when it comes to evil spirits or demonic activity, that Jesus is being a little bit hyperbolic. He's exaggerating aspects of the story to an almost comical point. It begins with an evil spirit experiencing homelessness. It's kind of goofy. And then to further the point, not only is the home, the place that he left, has been cleared out and organized, but it's also swept because evil spirits have high standards on dusty floors. Which, now that I say that, makes me think that's why he couldn't find rest in the desert, all of the sand. Jesus is making a point about what it means to follow him. That once the old self is gone and the sin is left behind, we now have the capacity to be filled and to have life to the full. Jesus is talking in supernatural terms, but there is a practical application to it. So I want to pause just for a moment on habits. When I said Jesus is talking in supernatural terms, but there's a practical application, I'm not trying to separate the supernatural or the spiritual from the practical and the physical. I'm not trying to compartmentalize those two things. There's a false dichotomy that we can fall into pretty easily, and that's that the physical reality that we experience is separate from the spiritual reality that God invites us to participate in with him. Real quick, I want to go to James. I like the book of James. It's to the point. It's very practical. It's kind of short. Just dive in and go. And in fact, most of James could be read in the context of what we're talking about, of habit, of action. So here's what James has to say about the physical and the supernatural. In James 2, he says, "What good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but do not show it by your actions? Can that faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye, have a good day, stay warm, eat well, but you don't give that person food or clothing. What good is that? So you see, by faith by itself is not enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Now, someone may argue that some have faith and others have good deeds, but I say, how can you show me your faith if you don't have good deeds? I will show you my faith by my good deeds. You see, practical, to the point, the physical and spiritual realities are in concert. They were never meant to be compartmentalized from each other. They're supposed to be experienced in tandem. This is why we scatter and serve. We partner with organizations like Women Giving Back, who provide clothes for women and children escaping abuse, or JK Community Farms, who provide produce for those experiencing food insecurities. I think we just heard something about giving someone food and clothing, right? This is James. This is why Terraforma's tagline is on earth as it is in heaven. Faith was never meant to be relegated to one day a week. It was intended to be lived out missionally in our neighborhoods, in our work, in our relationships. This is the shoulder to shoulder and life on life that we see and experience in community. How we drive is spiritual. The way we do our taxes is spiritual. Our work ethic is spiritual. Our habits are spiritual. So let's go back to Matthew. Jesus talks about the former home swept and in order, but it's empty. And I think empty is the issue here. That have you ever tried to quit a bad habit only to kind of fail and go back to it? It seems kind of harder to stop, and I think part of that is just the belief that maybe I won't be able to ever get over this. I don't have the willpower. I don't know if I can do it. This is where we're going to return to that cue, routine, reward cycle. There are a few things that can get us derailed when it comes to breaking bad habits. First, I think willpower is a lie. That may be a bit strong, but solely relying on willpower to break a habit is typically the first step towards failure on that. I'm not saying willpower doesn't play a part, but it's a supporting role, not the lead. That's why just try harder is so self-defeating. Because it leads to blaming ourselves when it doesn't work. I will never be able to quit this. See, what the struggle with willpower fails to acknowledge is that we are where we are because there was a system we built to get ourselves there. Whether it was intentional or not, these habits were created with every choice that we made, every day that we made it. It's a system. So I like systems. I've haphazardly learned that in order to function, I need them in my life. When I go home, I put my keys, I put my ring, I put my wallet, I put my phone all in the same spot so I don't lose them. When I wake up, I have a specific system on how I do that because I would rather sleep in. Even getting dressed, I have a system. I open the drawer, whatever's on top, I grab. If it's wrinkled, I put back. And I grab something else. That's my system. So I was listening to a podcast by Andy Stanley. And he said that every system is created to protect the status quo. And he was talking in regard to leadership, but it works in our context as well, with habits, with our actions. When we approach breaking a habit by trying harder, we are pitting effort against a system created to protect the habit that you're trying to break. This is why simply just like trying harder rarely works. There's an intentionality that needs to happen, that needs to be put in place. There's a system that we can follow to break ourselves out of the system that we brought ourselves into. So in last week's, or maybe 2 weeks now, weekend email, Donna referenced a study on habit. Now, if you're not getting Donna's emails, fill out a connection card. We donate to a scatter partner if you do. And if you are getting those emails and not reading them, you are missing out. So, it said that on average, a person needs 66 days to form a habit. Now, it would make sense if the way that a habit was learned could also be the way that it was unlearned, but that's not how it works. A while ago, I was talking with a student about his battle with porn, and he was talking about his streak, the number of days he went without looking at porn. It was a system that he was trying to use to break out of the habit, the system that he created. The problem, though, is that that's a broken system. Protecting the streak is actually counterproductive. For an example, my no button. This is going to be my bad habit. This is the personification of all appetites out of control.
No!
It's fun, right? What I want to do is not press this button. So I wake up in the morning and I think, I've got to continue the streak. I can't press this. And that thought continues throughout the day. Don't press the button. Continue the streak. I have just centered my day around thinking about the thing that I'm not supposed to do. It's our brains were not made to not think of something. Like if I say, don't think of a purple buffalo, what pops into your head? A purple buffalo. So by trying not to press the no button, thinking about not pressing the no button, I put it in the center of my head, and I am drawing myself to the very thing that I'm trying to step away from. And that's how the habit cycle starts. And once it starts, now I have to try and stop it midway through. It's the routine that I'm trying to address. So what if instead of relying on willpower or this number to break ourselves out of this negative cycle of cue, routine, and reward, we use that same cycle to create a new habit, to create a good habit. Going back to Matthew, we see that the house has been cleaned out and swept. What if it was full instead of empty? What if the space made by getting rid of the baggage, by getting rid of the sin, was there to be occupied by life, and life to the full? The best way to break out of a bad habit is to start a good one. But it's going to take some work. We need to understand the cue, the trigger that tells our brain to lapse into autopilot, to lapse into that habit, and understand the craving that drives it. When I'm anxious, I smoke. When I'm bored, I eat. When I'm upset, I drink. When I'm depressed, I look at porn. Once we understand these cues, we can change the routines. So when my youngest, Judah, was born, I was working a seasonal job and I had the next 2 months off. So I was full-time Mr. Mom. And I noticed something very, very quickly. I was getting grumpy and chubby. I realized that I was snacking because I was bored. And the grumpy came from feeling unproductive. Now, obviously, keeping my kids safe, watching them, helping them, being a parent, is not unproductive. But I needed something to make. I'm a maker. So I came up with a plan, or at least the beginnings of a system. I figured that I needed a hobby. I needed a hobby that I could make something, that I could divide my attention, so I could, be, paying attention to making sure my kids stay alive. I also needed to be able to put it down in case there was danger, right? And it had to keep me busy enough to keep me away from snacking, right? When I was bored. And I found one. I found a magic hobby. What is it? Knitting. I taught myself how to knit. It made me feel productive. It stopped me from snacking. And if you're thinking, what happened? He's still chubby. It's because I fell out of the habit of knitting. I got to get back into it. All right? So I'm acknowledging that. When we are trying to break out of a habit, we tend to focus on the routine, that action that we're trying to stop, instead of understanding the cue or the reward. I could have battled against snacking. I could have convinced myself that through sheer willpower, I wasn't going to go to the cabinet when I was bored. Eventually, I would have failed. But instead, I was able to identify the cue, the boredom, or the feeling unproductive. And my reward, the sense of accomplishment, or the satisfaction of creating something. And I was able to co-opt the routine to learn a new skill and, make friends and family some Christmas presents. It's a goofy example, but it worked. it can be hard to identify the elements of your habit cycle. But once you do, you can change it. I often joke about being lazy enough to seem efficient. And that is the constant state of our brains. They are always trying to get the most out of the least amount of effort. That's what that cycle of cue, routine, reward is. That's why habits form. It's so that our brains can go on autopilot through mundane tasks. Now, the problem with autopilot is that it is not conducive to life to the full. Often, the church has been known more for what it's against than what it is for. And I don't want you to think of that while listening to this. If our focus is about how not to do wrong, our faith is only sin management. It's I sin, I fail, I'll try again tomorrow, and that gets repeated over and over. That's not how we were supposed to live. That's not what we're being offered. What if we defined our faith not by the sin we are trying to resist, but by the relationship we've been invited into? That's what's happening in Matthew. There's this space that has been filled with illegitimate needs, or at least in illegitimate ways. And once that baggage has been cleared out, once that sin has been pulled away, we have the opportunity to fill that space with life. Where there was don't, there is now do. Where there was stop, there is now go. This is what Steve was talking about with life to the full. There should always be a practical element in faith. James says that how we live actually demonstrates our faith. Can I give you a challenge for this week? When you feel the pull to autopilot, whatever point in the cycle that you realize it, can you take 5 minutes and just think about it? When you're driving to work or starting to argue with family, maybe sitting down on the couch and reaching for your phone, can you ask a few questions? Like, is this enabling me to live life to the full? What reward am I looking for? What was the cue? What was the trigger? Why am I in this cycle right now? Or what you thought might have been that trigger maybe isn't the real issue. Or the reward you were trying to produce isn't actually the reward that you really want. I hope that you find something that brings you closer to life to the full, whether it's breaking a habit or creating a new habit. And ultimately, I hope that you find that God is for you. God, help us to be intentional with the things that we do, with the habits we participate in, with the interactions with others. You are inviting us into a bigger story. You are inviting us into a bigger community. And I ask that you enable us to live that out in an intentional way. Help us find the things that hinder us and give us the strength and endurance to work through those so that we can participate in the life that you'd have us.
the crushing, in the pressing, you're making new wine. In the soil I now surrender, you are breaking new ground. So I yield to you and to your perfect hand. When I trust you, I don't need to understand. Make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. In the crushing, in the pressing, you're making new wine. In the soil I now surrender, you're breaking new ground. You are breaking new ground. So make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. 'Cause where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom, and the kingdom is here. I lay down my own flames to carry your new fire today. 'Cause where there is new wine, there is new power, there is new freedom, and the kingdom is here. I lay down my own flames to carry your new fire today. Make me a vessel, make me an offering. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. 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 'Cause where there is new wine, there is new freedom, there is new freedom, the kingdom is here. Lay down your old flames to carry your new fire today. Make me a vessel, make me an offering, make me whatever you want me to be. I came here with nothing but all you have given me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me. Jesus, bring new wine out of me.
Hey, Jeremiah, thank you. That was great. Thanks for that encouraging message today. I appreciate it a lot. Man, I want to encourage everybody. Man, in this series, it would be kind of a tragedy if you didn't get to work and look at some of those habits. Jeremiah encouraged us today to kind of look at some of those bad habits that maybe need to be rewritten. Some of those routines that, they're not serving you. They're not helping you connect with God or become the person that you want to be. And so it's time to do that hard work. So put into practice. Don't forget what you heard today and just go on with your week. Begin to put it into practice. And that is how you'll begin to watch the grace of God transform your story. Man, God bless you this week. I hope you go in the peace of the Lord.